Hi, I'm Dr. Jen Landa. I'm an OBGYN, author of The Sex Drive Solution for Women, Chief Medical Officer of Body Logic MD, and creator of the Rewire Your Desire program to help women with low sex drive get the passion back in their lives. Welcome to my part three of my 4-webinar series. In this one, we're going to talk more about partner involvement, novelty, and the pro-libido lifestyle. So why are we here, right? What's the whole point of having more sex? We're here to rewire our sex drives. And sex is so important in our lives because it increases our self-confidence and our self-esteem. It fires up our energy, and it restores the passion in our lives and in our relationships. Today, I'm going to share with you some easy lifestyle changes that you can make that will activate your feel-good hormones and your brain chemicals. You'll learn how to involve your partner in your passion for passion, and we'll talk about using novelty to kick up your brain chemicals, bringing a sense of adventure into your life and into your bedroom. Finally, we'll discuss more ways to keep your body healthy and well-tuned for passion. Now I'm going to turn to your prescription plan that you had from last week. And I want to find out how you've done, so please feel free to put some feedback into the chat box so we can find out more about what's been going on for you. So hormones. After taking the hormone quiz, do you know which hormones are your issue? Did you do some exercises to feel the power of your testosterone? Did you do some of the burst training exercises? How did those go for you? And how about your mind and body? Did you do some sensory exercises with your partner? How did you feel following your nutrition plan? Did you do your daily meditation? Did you have more thoughts of sex? How's your energy level been over the past week? So now that we answered some of those questions, I wanted to talk more about what you can do and where you can go when you know that something's not right in your body. I've had so many patients who come into my office and tell me that I know that something's not right and I know that I need an answer. But OBGYNs, as I've told you, they're not prepared to give you the answers because we're not trained for it, unfortunately. So it's only with some of the things that I've came up with using my OBGYN training as a foundation and then learning more as I went along that I've been able to help women who have hormone imbalances and who have issues with their sex drive. This reminds me of a patient of mine named Lucinda. Lucinda told me when she came into my office that she'd gone to her OBGYN looking for answers, and they really didn't have any for her. They just told her, this is the way it is as you age. You really can't get your sex drive back. And Lucinda needed help, so I pulled out a whole bunch of tools from my passion kit. Let me tell you a little bit about Lucinda and what her issues were. So Lucinda, she was married to what she felt like was the greatest guy on earth. They'd been married almost 30 years already. She said he was super terrific, and she felt really bad for him because what she was feeling since she went into menopause, and that's since her periods went away, she said she started feeling completely unsexy, no sex drive or sexual desire whatsoever. She said she felt so much that way that she didn't even feel like cuddling with her husband anymore, and she said she was feeling more like an it than a woman. So she really needed a lot of help, and one of her biggest issues on top of all that was vaginal dryness. She said she had such bad vaginal dryness that even when she went to the trouble of trying to have sex with her husband, it was extremely painful. So Lucinda and I talked, and I taught her about ways of naturally healing her vaginal dryness. One of the best ways to do that is something that I kind of alluded to last night, bioidentical estrogen. That's estrogen that's exactly the same as what's in your body naturally. And I saw that one of the questions from last night was, what's the difference between estrogen and estradiol? Estrogen is a class of compounds, actually. Estradiol is a type of bioidentical estrogen. So there are multiple types of bioidentical estrogen. Estradiol and estriol are the two types of bioidentical estrogens that work best in women's bodies, and they work best in our vaginas to help restore our vaginas and to help with vaginal dryness. And OBGYNs, some of them know the tricks as far as vaginal estradiol rather. They use vaginal estradiol, but they tend to use them in really large amounts. So what comes out is either really, really messy cream, or now they're using this really tiny vaginal tablet. Some women find the vaginal tablet effective, and it is a bioidentical form of vaginal estrogen. But some women don't find the tablet effective, and then they get given this really messy cream. Vaginal cream does not have to be messy that way. We can give it to you in a very small amount, just enough to use to spread over the parts that matter. And when you use estrogen that way and rub it in really well, it gets to where it needs to go, and it can help cure the whole issue of vaginal dryness safely and very quickly. Most of my patients' vaginal dryness gets better in 4 to 6 weeks. I get excited if that's a patient's main problem because I know I can fix that. I know that one is pretty much a slam dunk. So if you're having vaginal dryness, keep in mind there are definitely ways to solve it quickly. With Lucinda, though, there was more than just the vaginal dryness going on. And we talked about ways to change her focus on her senses, her mindfulness, and we also talked about how to use novelty and adventure. We changed her habits, we changed her attitude. She learned to use the pro-libido lifestyle because she really needed to get into that too, with the nutrition, the exercise, the stress management. I helped her increase her lovingness, her sensuality, and her desire. And here's what happened. She felt like she got her feminine power back. She said she finally feels like a woman again. She doesn't feel like an it. And she and her husband feel like they're on their honeymoon again. And she is so thrilled that she persevered and went beyond the advice that her OBGYN gave her, that there wasn't anything she can do. And she's having the best time of her life with her partner as they're aging. And she was worried that she'd never get that back again, but she's got it back better than ever. And she's so excited about it. And I'm so excited for her. So let's talk now about how to involve your partner in some of what we've been talking about. Are you involving your partner now? If not, you really should think about involving your partner, because if you and your partner work on sex drive issues together, you'll both benefit. One of the cool things about having a long-term partner like the patient I was just telling you about, and probably like a lot of you do, it becomes a little harder sometimes to get that spark, but one of the really neat things is you have the old and the comfort of really knowing each other and having a lot of intimacy, and things are more meaningful, and then you can add the new to that. Remember, if you eat your favorite food 3 times a week, you get sick of it. Our need for novelty is why we go to new restaurants, why we travel, and why we try new things. This need is stronger in some people than others, but most of us enjoy doing new things and enjoying new experiences. And those, if we do them with our partners, they can help us find our partner more exciting, and we become closer through doing new things together and having new shared experiences. When you involve your partner in the process of bringing more passion into your life, you form a bond. You go on this journey together, and that'll make it so much more powerful. So your relationship, I've touched on this a little bit before. How is your relationship? Is it something you need to work on? Remember that if you're feeling a sexual drive, but it's not towards your partner, especially if you're having anger and resentment issues with your partner, and if you're not seeing results in your work on your sex drive, you may need to work on your relationship. Women are usually not into having sex when they feel resentful, or they feel angry, or they're not feeling close to their partner. Remember, emotional intimacy is a big part of the reason that women want to have sex, and it's a big trigger for sex and our sex drive. So if we feel closer and we have sex, sex makes us feel closer. So just remember that you may have relationship issues that you may need to work on so that your sex drive will come back stronger. Date nights are an absolute priority. We need to make that sexy time for you to be together as a couple. Make your love life and sex a priority. Schedule several hours of uninterrupted time so you can let the passion build between you. Make the date night and don't break it. Make it a priority. Make your time together a priority. Scheduling sex may not sound that sexy, but we schedule everything. So if you don't schedule sex, it might not happen. Date nights are also a great way to build the sexual tension between you and your partner. It gives both of you something to look forward to. And a schedule helps you clear the decks. So it helps you make sure you're not going to have a lot of other things running through your mind and interfering with the mood. Scheduling date nights and scheduling sexy time may also help with another practical concern. Some guys need to take erectile dysfunction meds like Viagra and Cialis and things like that. So scheduling sex can help with that too. But just remember, when you schedule your date night, don't schedule to do the same old thing. If dinner and a movie has always been your thing, do something new, shake it up, and make sure to do something new. Use novelty during the date night, and we're going to talk a lot more about that. I've got another tip for you. If you've got kids, plan to do a kids swap. So what that means is find a friend or a neighbor with kids as well, and arrange to have them take your kids on a weekend night, and then the next weekend night or the next week, take their kids. Because that's what, when couples get to enjoy what I like to call naked time or sexy time. So having your place to yourselves and getting to walk around naked like you might have before you had kids, it's a really freeing experience. So remember to try to take your abode, take your home back, and try to see if you can get your kids offloaded to a friend for the kids swap or to a family member or something like that. For the date nights, build anticipation and have fun with it. Flirt like you used to. You can use sexy texting, emails, notes in the lunchbox. Make sure to schedule time ahead of the date night to have time to primp and prepare and to embark on that transition. Mindfulness takes a little bit of preparation and mind work to put yourself in that moment, to put those busy thoughts on the shelf like we've talked about before. You may need some transition time, so schedule that in. And a warm bath, candles, aromatic essential oils can really help. Plan to arouse your senses and your partner's favorite senses, and those will work as a spark. Even think about masturbating beforehand, or remember that nipple stimulation. You can use those to spark up your feel-good hormones and really get you going and get you in the mood. Another thing that I love is what I like to call my sexy tropical secret. What I mean by this is extra virgin coconut oil. Extra virgin coconut oil is one of the best natural vaginal lubricants that I can think of. It smells great, it tastes great, and it maintains the moisture in the vagina for a lot longer than things like KY, like those water-based lubricants. The water-based tend to be what most doctors recommend, but those tend to ball up and dry up way too soon. The other lubricants are the silicone-based ones, and I don't like the toxins that might be in those. So I really love the extra virgin coconut oil. It even works for sex in the shower. It decreases that friction. The one thing that I want to remind you now, I live in Florida, so for the most part, except when it's winter, my extra virgin coconut oil is pretty soft and in a liquidy form. But if you keep your house pretty cold or you live in a colder environment, remember that your extra virgin coconut oil can get solid frozen like a, not frozen, but solid like a brick. And so some people may be wondering, well, how the heck am I supposed to use that? So remember to keep something like a little wooden spatula or a spoon. When you scoop it out that way, or even you can use your fingers, the minute it touches your hands, the warmth of your body will warm the coconut oil right up and it will liquefy. And then it'll be great to use vaginally as a lubricant. So remember that sexy tropical secret because it can be a great, great help. So clear the decks. Remember with the date night, set the stage. Write that list of your busy thoughts and keep it elsewhere. The candles, the music, the sexy scents, the tasty treats, whatever gets your senses going. And take your sexy time to explore one another's fantasies and really take the time to tune into your senses. Don't expect to be stimulated in the same way as when you first became lovers. There's a new adventure in there, and you just need to make it happen. You need to find it. You may not feel the same excitement as you felt before, but you know this person and you're comfortable with them. which means that you can really have a lot of fun experimenting in new and different ways from the ways that you've ever done it before. So you can do things with this old person that you wouldn't do with a new person. So you can try things together and grow together. Remember, people crave adventure and they crave novelty. You must start creating that new excitement, and you must do it all the time. I'm going to tell you about one of my patients who does an amazing job at creating this excitement. Her name is Sherry, and she's an actress. She told me she'd probably be listening to these webinars. She is an expert at creating this new environment. And the way she does it, which is probably pretty high level for most of us, but I'll tell you some ways you can adapt her experience. So what she does is she takes role playing with her hubby to another level altogether. She takes on a different persona sometimes when they go on dates. And she told me sometimes she even carries it forward to an entire weekend. And she'll go as far, she told me, as going to the discount store and outfitting herself with a new wardrobe, sexier clothes than she might normally wear. She does her hair differently, her makeup differently. She might talk with an accent. And she told me she stays away from the usual topics that she'd talk about, like their home, their kids, their usual lives together. And she'll talk about something completely different, something that she might know a little bit about, but something that she wouldn't normally talk about. And she stays in character. And she said for her and her husband, this is such an amazing adventure. Now, okay, most of us are not actresses, and I don't think I could pull off what Sherry's doing. But one practical way that I think a lot of us can benefit and can do something like that is consider driving different cars and going out to a restaurant or a bar and meeting up with each other and pretend that it's just your first date and talk to each other like you would as if you were first getting to know each other. You'll be surprised at the excitement and the sparks that you can create with that new idea. Creating adventure is finding new ways to have new experiences with your partner. So consider doing things that you don't normally do, like travel, hike, bike, dance. Take up a new hobby. Or consider doing totally wild things, like go bungee jumping or skydiving. Or if that wild is too wild for you, try learning something new, like taking a cooking class or taking up some new hobby together. It can be as simple as a walk in the park, borrowing a friend's dog and playing frisbee. The options are endless here. Creating the novelty in your relationship brings back a spark, and you can use that spark to really spark up some flames together. You're less shy when you're with a comfortable lover, so capitalize on that familiarity with your long-term partner. You can really go all out when you really know somebody, and you might be surprised by their reaction to you doing something new. My patients tell me all the time how it's so exciting when they surprise their spouse with something new, and they get such a great feedback from their partner, and it creates this afterglow in them for days afterwards. They talk about the new experience and how exciting it was for both of them. Adventure and novelty work in a really special way. They actually change our brain chemistry. Experiencing excitement together through new adventures ups your feel-good brain chemicals like beta endorphin, adrenalines like epinephrine and norepinephrine. It doesn't really matter if you understand all the chemical names that I just talked about. It matters that you understand what they do. They create that excitement and that spark, and your partner becomes more exciting to you, and you become more exciting to your partner. With the release of these chemicals during your new experience, it leads to more bonding and more excitement with one another. The best example I can think about of this is the show The Bachelor. I have to admit that's my guilty pleasure. I watch almost no TV whatsoever, but I do love the show The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. And one of the things that the producers in this show know perfectly well is that when you create that sense of adventure and novelty and excitement together, you're going to create bonding. So they have these couples do crazy things. They scale buildings, or they climb down buildings, rappelling, I believe it's called. They climb bridges together. So they do these scary things. They conquer their fears together. And afterwards, they always say, it was amazing how so-and-so was there for me during this scary experience. And after that, it made me look at them in a different way. I found them to be so much more attractive, and we're so much more bonded by this special experience that we've had. So keep that show example in mind, because it's a great way of creating new excitement and spark with an old partner, or even with a new partner. So novelty. Novelty is doing something new, not necessarily only adventure, but something new. And that increases dopamine, which is a really good feel-good brain chemical, which also ups our sex drive, and a chemical called PEA. These brain chemicals make us feel like falling in love. They have this amazing quality because it's new. It's boring to do the same old thing. Remember about Penny that I told you back in one of our other webinars? She was hesitant to experiment because of her upbringing. And when she did, the sparks really started to fly in her relationship. And that's because she dared to try some new tricks, which helped to spark up those chemicals. So now let's get into fun stuff. What novelty? Let's talk about novelty and how you can bring some novelty into your life and into your bedroom. So novelty can include all kinds of things, like acting out fantasies, just even talking about fantasies. You don't even have to act them out. Sex toys, which we're going to get to more of in a few minutes. Erotic literature, that's called erotica. There is an amazing wealth of erotic books and stories out there that are totally focused on women's erotic nature rather than men's. And find some of that stuff and find some that turns you on. We're going to have some listings of some of the ones that I like on my website, and there's some in my book. Find anything that you can that's going to stimulate and awaken your senses. Novelty is fun, and don't be afraid to have fun with it. This is where to get risque. Here's some ideas. Maybe take off your underwear in the ladies' room the next time you go out to dinner with your man and slide him those underwear under the table. Or go commando. They call commando is going without panties altogether. So wear a little skirt out and don't skip the panties altogether. Try making love in new places, like in the pouring rain, a thunderstorm. Being the only two that are in on a special sexy secret brings you closer. So keep that in mind when you come up with new sexy ways to share with one another. Try playing with your senses. When you block off one sense, you make the other senses stronger. So some ways to try this is using a blindfold. You can use some neckties or some silky scarves to try tying each other up. People feel more sexy sometimes when they're bound. Another thing you can try is even using earplugs to bring out other senses like touch. Audiobooks of sexy erotica, or read to each other when you find the erotic literature that you like. Have your partner read to you, or you read to him. Pornography can be right for some couples. There is a whole bunch of, just like I said, there's female erotica, there's also female-friendly pornography. So a lot of women aren't so turned on by the typical male-type pornography. Some women do like it, don't get me wrong. But some women don't love that, but they might be more turned on by what they call female-friendly pornography. So look at both types and see what turns you on. Another thing to do is, like I said before, share and act out your fantasies, or just share them. One way to bring those out a little bit more easily might be to play one of those erotic board games or dice games. They encourage you to share your fantasies or do things that you might want to do, but might feel a little embarrassed to bring up. Now we're going to get a little graphic about the sex toys. I promised you we'd talk about these. So some of the things to keep in mind about sex toys, number one, are avoid what they call phthalates. Phthalates are chemicals that are used in plastics. They're used in every plastic from kids' toys all the way through all these sex toys that we're going to be talking about. You want to avoid the phthalates because the phthalates are chemical toxins that aren't good for us. There's tons and tons of sexy toys out there now that are made phthalate free, so just keep that in the back of your mind. Before I get into this, let me have a sip of my water. So some sex toys are battery operated, some plug in, and some are rechargeable. Figure out what's right for you. Personally, I like the battery operated ones, especially the ones that you can use AA's and AAA's with, because most people have those around their house normally. A lot of sex toys take those round little watch batteries. Those can be a little harder to find and a little bit more expensive, and they run out a little quicker. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your toys. Look at the power sources. Also, if you're going to a store, don't be afraid to ask the clerk to let you try it out with the batteries. And of course, I don't mean try it out on anything but your hand, but you want to feel the strength of it. And of course, all of these can be ordered online. So you don't have to go to a store. Nobody has to know you purchased them. When you order them, and I will send you an email with some of the sites that I like that you can order from, they'll send you them in a brown box. Nobody will know where they're coming from or what they are. So let's get into it and have some fun. So vibrators are the main thing that I'm going to talk about, because there are so many different types of vibrators out there on the market. A little history fact about vibrators, which I think is kind of interesting. Doctors used to use vibrators as a way to masturbate women to climax to treat them for the condition known as hysteria. They used to think that bringing women to climax would relax them and cure them of this hysteria. Well, we know from what we've been talking about already that orgasm does cause women to relax. So they would do this manually with their hands at first, and some very smart person came up with the vibrator to save the doctor's hands from getting too tired. Well, lucky for us that they had the necessity of that invention, because now we have a whole host of amazing sex toys to choose from. And please don't be shy about asking questions about any of these. So first I'm going to talk about mainly clitoral stimulators. So one of the very common ones is called a pocket rocket. It's called that because it can fit inside your pocket basically. It's small, it's intense, and it works really well for clitoral stimulation. They're really easy to find. They're very inexpensive. You can find them with the AA model that I mentioned. They last a long time with just that one AA. Another type that falls into the same category is what I call a lipstick vibrator. So they make vibrators now that look like lipstick. So you can put it right in your makeup case and nobody would be any the wiser. I've even seen some now that look like mascara wands and other different makeup items. The lipstick is the most popular though. And those work really well for the direct clitoral stimulation that some women need. Those can be used really well during sex as well. So if you're trying to reach climax, especially when your husband or your partner is coming from behind, it's great to be able to use these clitoral stimulators. It's an easy way that you can reach and try to have an orgasm while you're having sex. Keep in mind, not all women do that. So many women come to this is a little aside, but so many women come to my office concerned that they don't have vaginal orgasms. They don't have orgasms without clitoral stimulation. Only about 20 to 30% of women have those types of orgasms. Most women do need an additional clitoral stimulation. So a vibrator is a great way to do it. Another great position to use these in is woman on top position. So you have a lot of room to manipulate these small vibrators against the clitoris while you're having intercourse. So the rabbit vibrator was the one made famous by Sex and the City. So what is it? The rabbit is great because it's got an area it's got a penis-shaped portion that you insert into the vagina, like a dildo. And the rabbit's special feature is that part, it gyrates and vibrates and can be set in all sorts of modes. And at the same time, there's a part that stimulates the clitoris. That's the part that tends to look like a rabbit. It's got ears and it looks like a rabbit. And those ears kind of go up and stimulate the clitoris at the same time. And you can set the rabbit usually in several different modes. And that's a great vibrator that a lot of women use on their own. One of the women on Sex and the City had gotten addicted to using hers. So that's a great stimulator to use. Another thing I want to talk about is G-spot vibrators. So one of the bonuses explains to you all about how to find your G-spot, what it is, how to stimulate it. But one of the types of categories of vibrators, it can vibrate and it might not vibrate. There are dildos that are G-spot type dildos that don't vibrate, but most of them do. And that means that it has a bend in it so that the G-spot is stimulated. The G-spot would be found if a woman's lying down and inserts a vibrator into her vagina. The vibrator would need to curve upward toward her belly to stimulate the G-spot. So that's how G-spot vibrators are shaped, and you can use those to stimulate the G-spot to experience another type of orgasm or just another type of stimulation. So what else have we got here? We've got egg vibrators. Egg vibrators are very versatile. They can be cordless, and they might have a cord on them. They're just small eggs that they're shaped like eggs, and they vibrate, and they can be inserted into the vagina. They can be inserted into the anus. They can be used for direct clitoral stimulation. They're pretty small, so they can be used, like I said, during intercourse, like I mentioned, for the pocket rocket and the lipstick. The egg may be a more convenient shape for you. It can be used in all different kinds of ways. So it's very versatile and usually very inexpensive and pretty powerful as well. So consider getting an egg because it's a great one to have in your repertoire. Butterflies. So we're going to get into fun vibrators that you can have an experience of adventure and novelty with the butterfly vibrator. The butterfly is, it can be worn basically. It's a vibrator that is pushed up against the clitoris, and then it has basically straps that go around your legs. So you almost wear them like a pair of panties, and you can wear them out to dinner on a sexy date. You can slide your underwear right over them. The butterflies usually have kind of a separate controller, and it can be wired or it can be wireless. So here's a really fun thing I want to tell you about. The butterfly is one option, and then there's another one that I just personally found and love. It's called the Club Vibe. The Club Vibe is made by the same company that makes the Weave Vibe, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. The Club Vibe is just a small vibrator that can be put inside your underwear, and the Club Vibe even comes with a pair of underwear that's made to slip the little device right into. So you put on this sexy pair of underwear, there's a vibrating part that goes right up against your clitoris, and here's the really fun part. It comes with a remote control that you can give to anybody you want. So if you go out to a sexy date night with your partner, and you go out to dinner or to a club, and we'll get to the club part in a minute, you can give your partner the control, and they can control how much vibration you're getting. This is a fun, sexy secret for a couple, and they will have fun remembering it for days and days after. So what it does, in addition to your man being able to control the strength of the vibration, the Club Vibe, it vibrates to music, and it vibrates to the sound of our voices. And the remote control can adjust the sensitivity so that you can make it very insensitive so that it hardly vibrates at all, or you can make it very sensitive. So if you go someplace that has some great music, it will vibrate in time to the music, or it will even vibrate in response to your voices when you're chatting with each other. It's a really sexy, fun thing, so try it out. It's a little bit pricey, but I promise you, I think it's pretty well worth it. So other things that we're going to talk about. The cock ring vibrator. So what is that? That's a vibrator that is essentially like a ring that goes around the penis. So they make those in several different models, but the key part is that they vibrate. Sometimes it's the whole, so the man basically slips the ring around his penis. It works really nicely if you put it around the non-erect penis, but most of these vibrating rings are stretchy enough that they can stretch very well over the erect penis. And you flip them on, they usually have a tiny little switch. Some of them are just one-time use, and they vibrate. And so when you're making love, you can have the clitoral stimulation when you're having sex. And some of them have kind of like a little mini egg thing shape on them. So if you kind of gyrate against him or he does against you, you'll get clitoral stimulation as well as the internal vaginal stimulation. And that can work really well for some women as well. Those are fun to try. So we'll talk about anal play a little bit. There are anal plugs or anal beads. Now you may not be up for that. You want to make sure that you wash these toys very well. And one thing I want to make an important point of, Don't go between the vagina to the anus and back again. There's bacteria in your anus that can spread infection to your vagina, so you want to make sure if you're going to use a toy in both places that you wash it really well in between. So the anal plugs are basically they're anal dildos, but they're usually smaller, maybe a little thicker, and you can insert them before sex or during sex, and you can use it to feel the filling feeling of what they call dual penetration or double penetration, so you can leave it in while you have intercourse, or you can just use it to play. Some people use the anal plugs, or butt plug is the more conventional term for it, as a way to prepare the anal sphincter for anal intercourse, because the muscles are quite tight, and you don't want to do any of this without a good amount of lubrication, remember. The coconut oil works well, and you can use other water-based lubricants as well, and you can use that to insert the anal plug or, of course, the penis. Anal beads are small beads that are usually on a chain. Well, a chain. Not necessarily a chain, but they're kind of linked together, and sometimes it's by a string, and sometimes they're more of like a rubbery, plasticky kind of consistency. Either way, they can be inserted. A lot of people talk about inserting them during foreplay and maybe during oral sex. When your man's going down on you, they say it's very stimulating to pull them out right at the time of orgasm, that it can really make orgasm mind-blowing. So consider giving that a try. And those, by the way, the plugs and the beads, they can be vibrating or non-vibrating. You can get them in both models. Now I want to talk about Benoit balls and Kegel trainers. So Kegel trainers, what are Kegel exercises? First of all, let's talk about that. Kegel exercises are a way that you can strengthen your vaginal muscles. So why would you do that? Well, for some women, it's because they have stress incontinence, which means they lose urine when they cough or laugh or sneeze. If that's happening to you, one of the best ways that you can help yourself solve that problem is to do Kegel exercises. Your vagina and right around your urethra and your anus are all made of muscle. There's a lot of muscle there, and you can work that muscle out just like you work out other muscles, and that will help tighten the whole area. So it can help tighten the whole area so that you can hold onto your urine better. It can tighten the area to make sex more pleasurable. So some women who work on their Kegel exercises, and by the way, this name Kegel that I keep using, it was just named after a doctor many years ago. But that's what women mostly call these exercises. So some women can use them to strengthen the strength of their orgasm, and some women use it because they want to sort of shrink their vagina. They're concerned about the looseness that they might have after childbirth or as they age, and you really can work these muscles. So how do these balls and things fit in? So Benoit balls can be used for this Kegel training that I mentioned. They also can be used just because they have a pleasurable sensation. These balls are weighted, and when they knock together inside of you, some women find that sensation very pleasurable. Ways to increase that are by walking around with the balls inside, which may take some practice because they're pretty heavy and you need to use those muscles, squeeze them pretty hard. You can also try sitting in a rocking chair and using the Benoit balls and feeling the sensation of them clanking into each other. The Benoit balls have been used in, I believe they were developed in China thousands of years ago, so they're one of the oldest sex toys. And the Kegel exercisers, they're also weighted balls. They tend to be a slightly larger size, and so those you can use to train your Kegel muscles anytime. Another sex toy which you may or may not have ever heard of is something called a Sybian. This one is sort of the king of all sex toys. It's almost like a saddle that you would see if you were sitting on a horse, and the whole entire thing vibrates, and then it has the ability to attach dildos, vibrating dildos to it. So basically you mount it like you would mount a horse, but you put the dildo inside of you, and it can be turned up or down based on the amount of vibration that somebody might want. These are pretty pricey, so sure not everybody's going to be getting one for their bedroom, but just something to know about. The We Vibe. want to tell you about that. That's my last sex toy that I'm going to tell you about. So the We Vibe is a little pricey in a much more reasonable range than the Sybian, but but some people really enjoy it. So what is the We Vibe? It's like a U-shaped device that vibrates, and you put part of the U inside of your vagina, and it stays applied to the upper part of your vagina, and then the other part of the U goes outside the vagina on the clitoris. So it's a way of stimulating the inside and the outside at the same time. The We Vibe, it turns out they've made it an accommodation. They've had several versions, and this newest version, they made it like the Club Vibe so that you can have a remote control on it as well. But it can be used just during intercourse. Some people like to use it during intercourse because it gives that clitoral stimulation as well as the internal stimulation at the same time as you're having intercourse. And that can even stimulate your husband's penis or your partner's penis. And so that can be exciting for both partners. So that concludes my talking about the vibrators. And remember to check your bonuses for my list of sex toys, because these will all be in there recapped for you. Some other ways to use novelty that I want to mention are silky handcuffs, or even they have feather handcuffs. Feather tickling. Some people really enjoy the sensation of using a feather to tickle their partner. Another thing to think about is finding new erogenous zones. So we all know, of course, that the vagina and the penis are erogenous zones, but did you know that fingers, hands, mouths, necks, feet, thighs, ankles, the buttocks, the small of the back, the breasts and the anus, of course, don't leave those out, can all be different types of erogenous zones. One of those that I just mentioned, I want to call to your special attention, because I call this the secret sexy place. Remember I mentioned the small of the back? Well, there's a particular reason for that. Because, and this area that I'm talking about is about 4 to 5 inches above your buttocks, between those little dimples if you have them. It's about that area. That area is the area where all the nerves for all of your genitals, your clitoris, your vagina, your vulva, all of the nerves come out of your spinal cord at that spot. So if you massage that spot, some women find it very erotic and very stimulating. And it's a great way to stimulate yourself to get in the mood when you're not in the mood, or teach your partner to do it. So you can massage it with a massager, like, I didn't really mention this during our vibrator talk, but one of those massagers that you can buy in the drugstore or at Brookstone, that's a good way to massage this area. You can also just use a tennis ball, lay on the tennis ball and kind of roll around on it, or teach your partner to massage it for you. It can definitely stimulate sexy feelings in your sexy places and get you going. Another way to experience novelty that some people have been experimenting with is to explore tantric sex. I recommend the book Urban Tantra in the picture there, because Urban Tantra, or Tantra, however is the proper pronunciation, but it's a great introduction to modern day Tantra. It's a very deep, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, it's a very deep spiritual practice that has been practiced for thousands of years. I believe it originated in India. And it can be very, very involved, but you can benefit from just using a little bit of it. Learning how to do a fire breath orgasm is an amazing practice that was developed a long time ago. It's got a modern twist on it, though, to make it simple for those of us who aren't totally indoctrinated to understand. And we're going to talk about fire breath orgasm in our final webinar. It's a great tool that we can use to get in the mood sometimes. So how do you introduce novelty safely with your partner? You really need to have a very frank conversation with your partner, and you need to talk about what feels safe for each of you, what feels edgy, on the edge, and what might be over the edge, and where do you want to go with it. It might take work to try to figure out what's going to work the best for you guys, but maybe try going out and just buying a toy, something just to start with that you both feel comfortable with. And remind yourself all about the brain chemicals that will be released for you when you use novelty on your date nights and all the time. It's healthy and it's loving. I want to tell you about a couple that I have treated in my practice and how using novelty really helped them amp things up. Paul is a patient that was in his early 60s, and Joanna was in her late 40s. They had an interesting twist on things. Paul had recently retired, but Joanna was still in the workforce, and she was somewhat resentful of Paul's new freedom. And one of the things that she and he both complained about pretty much was that their sex life had gotten stale, the passion had kind of dropped off, and they both realized that they wanted more out of life, and they thought that they should be able to have it. So Paul and I talked about it, and I was treating Paul as well. Paul got on hormones, and he felt great right away. His erection, which hadn't always been reliable, came back full force, and he was ready to go. Joanna, on the other hand, was not so simple. She didn't get the rev up of her sex drive that she was hoping for by just going on hormones. So we tried some mindfulness and stress reduction. But then we got to talking, and she told me it wasn't really working that well for her. Quite frankly, she loved her husband, but she was bored. They were having sex the same way that they've been having it for years and years and years. Missionary position, 3 times a week, lights out, eyes closed. And that having sex in the same way was getting tiresome for her. She wanted to shake things up, but she wasn't really sure how to go about it. So we got really into the idea of novelty, and as you just saw, I can surely talk about novelty and fun new things to try. So she decided to try some of the things we talked about. She tried role-playing and some naughty outfits. She got some erotic reading material, and they got into some fantasy sharing. All of that led this couple on a whole new sexual journey, and they are still enjoying all of that to this day and creating new things. Every time I see them, they're all excited and they tell me all about it. So I'm sure that some of the things we've been talking about have brought up some questions. And we're going to take a minute here to talk about some of the questions that you might have. So if you have questions and you haven't put them in yet, please put them into the chat window, and I'm going to take a minute to address some of those now. Great question. So we had somebody who asked, I take bioidentical estrogen and I'm still not having vaginal orgasms. What can I do? Great question. As I mentioned, touched on briefly before, I really, really want people to understand this. Only about 20% of women are lucky enough or, able to easily enough have vaginal orgasms without really working on it. A lot of women can get there if they do work on it, but they may never. One thing that's really interesting to note is there was a really interesting article in one of the sex journals, I guess is what I would call them, the Journal of Sexual Medicine that the doctors who are into this read. There was an interesting article, and they interviewed about 6 different experts in the field as to whether there really is a difference between vaginal orgasms and clitoral orgasms. So why do I say that? Well, the clitoris is an organ that you might not realize is much, much bigger than you think it is. So we all concentrate and think about the clitoris as that little nub under the hood. The clitoris has legs that go down for 4 inches deep into the vagina. So those legs are actually very sensitive too. So the legs of the clitoris can be accessed through the vagina by the partner pushing upward against the upper part of the vagina. If you picture the woman laying down, it would be her upper part of her vagina. You can stimulate the clitoris from the inside and from the outside, kind of like that Wee Vibe toy I talked about, by having sex. So is it really true if a woman's having an orgasm from just sexual intercourse that she's really having a vaginal orgasm, something that's distinct? Most of the experts came down on the side that maybe there really is a distinction between the two. Some women talk about it being a G-spot orgasm. So finding and locating your G-spot and using the bonus material that we included for you in your membership download section, you can click on that bonus. It tells you all about your G-spot, how to find it, how to stimulate it, and consider getting one of those G-spot vibrators that I talked about so that you learn how to stimulate it, because it's very much of a learned sort of thing. Most women don't necessarily feel comfortable stimulating their G-spot right away. A lot of women, it makes you feel like you've got to pee. So that could be a reason you're not having vaginal orgasms as well. So learn to stimulate that G-spot and have your partner learn to stimulate it, and then have them learn to try to stimulate it during sex. But remember, there is no shame whatsoever in having to have some clitoral stimulation as well when you're having intercourse. Most women need that. Another way to learn to have a vaginal orgasm is to have your partner use their fingers. Sometimes women can have a vaginal orgasm that way first. So you're getting the picture now that I'm saying it takes a lot of practice, and only about 20% of women do it kind of naturally on their own. So you're in the majority if you haven't been having vaginal orgasms, so don't sweat it. What other questions do we have? The question was, when would one use Scream Cream? Scream Cream is usually used before sexual intercourse, during the foreplay period. That's when you would use Scream Cream because it works fairly quickly. That's a good one. Are there particular scents or fragrances that are particularly sexually stimulating? And the answer is yes, there are several that are known to be. One of them is patchouli or jasmine, sandalwood, amber. These are the top ones off the top of my head. But some people find the scent, I just found, I think I mentioned that I've been using incense a little lately, and I found one that has the scent of leather. And leather can be a really erotic smell for some women. You might want to go for a woodsy type of fragrance like the sandalwood, like I mentioned. It all depends what you like in particular. But those are some of the most common ones that I've seen. But look in your natural health food store, by the way. They have samples of all of them that you can smell, and see what you think is an erotic smell, because that's really very individual. I love a lot of things that other people don't like, and same vice versa. Any other questions? So can I recommend a book for, was it a book for erotica or describe, okay. So the question was, can I recommend a book or describe the best way to teach yourself how to have multiple orgasms? Um, I don't, I'd like to research that question about a book because I haven't looked at any books particularly on that subject. But one of the techniques we're going to teach you is the fire breath orgasm. That, I would say, definitely decreases the orgasm threshold, so definitely make sure to tune in for the next webinar because we're going to talk about fire orgasm and how to have one. And we're also going to talk about, also as far as having multiple orgasms, using a vibrator is definitely a way to do it. And firing up your oxytocin. Remember I told you that oxytocin decreases the orgasm threshold. So using nipple stimulation will help you achieve multiple orgasm. And we're going to talk a little bit in the last webinar about the multiple different kinds of orgasms that we can experience. So you might be able to experience more than one kind of orgasm when you're trying to have your multiple orgasms. So I'm excited to talk to you more about that. Mm-hmm. The question was, is it common for women to get orgasms while they're sleeping, and is it from dreaming? Well, that is actually one of those 7 types of orgasms that I'm going to go over in the final webinar, and it's called a dreamgasm. So yes, it's not unusual, and yes, it might be due to dreams. It might not be, but yes, it's definitely something that can happen and is a legitimate type of orgasm, and it's great for you if you're having them. There's a good question. Do I recommend to clean out the anus before anal play? Some people do enemas, practice enemas before they engage in anal play. I think it depends mainly on your comfort level and also on your, I guess what I'd call evacuation status. Most of us know if the anal vault is full of stool and waiting to be evacuated or not. So I would say the best practice is to evacuate with a bowel movement if you can before you engage in anal play. But also don't be afraid of the fact that there may be some stool and that's not really that big a deal. You just want to make sure, like I said before, not to mix between the vagina and the anus as much as possible. Try to keep any play there separate. So don't, the same as I said, don't bring toys back and forth. Also, don't let your partner go back and forth. Don't engage in anal play with your partner's penis and then have them let them put it back in the vagina. That can spread bacteria to you that'll may give you a vaginal infection. Will I be talking about female ejaculation? I hadn't planned on it, but it's definitely something to consider putting into the last webinar. So, and if I don't do that, then I'll send you an email on it because female ejaculation is very interesting, and we can definitely talk more about that. Other questions? Okay, so that's all the questions that we have for now. Those were great questions, and thank you so much for your questions. And please, if you have more, continue to enter them in the chat box. So there's a few things that I'm sure all of us want in life. We all want to get our mojo back, naturally. We all want to wake up in the morning filled with energy and ready to go. We'd all love to have lots of energy all day long to carry us through the day. And we'd all love to feel healthy, ready for life, passionate, and in a great relationship. So I want to talk to you about the pro-libido lifestyle. This is super important for combining everything that we've talked about. And these are just a few easy steps that I'm going to teach you that you can make. They're not hard. They don't take a lot of your time, but they will change your life. I want to help you improve your health, make you more receptive to sex. You'll look better, you'll feel better, and you'll even have more self-confidence. So to remember the steps of the pro-libido lifestyle, I want you to remember the word senses. We've been talking about the senses already, so it should be pretty easy to remember. S for stress management, enough sleep, nutritional eating, senses, pay attention to your senses, exercise daily or almost daily, self-image. These are easy steps that you can take to change your life. So first we're going to go into stress management. We're going to talk a little bit about that again. You've heard this in every webinar so far, and I'll continue to say it. Stress is probably your biggest sex killer. I know you can't get rid of it all, but why don't you start with just the low-hanging fruit? Remove as many stressors from your life as you possibly can and watch what happens. Sleep. Sleep is super important. Sleep at least 7 to 8 hours a night. Sleep helps curb stress, which is one of the big sex killers, remember. Sleep improves our moods, it improves our memory. We make passion-boosting hormones while we sleep. And we repair our bodies. Getting enough sleep helps control cortisol, and getting better sleep is going to give us better energy for sex. Sleeping less than 7 to 8 hours a night makes people tend to weigh more. So there's a great reason to get more sleep. You'll lose more weight. And it's a positive cycle. Sex helps you sleep better, and better sleep is better for passion. So please schedule yourself to get 7 to 8 hours of restful sleep per night. Again, if you don't schedule it, it may not happen. So schedule your sleep as well. Nutrition. Nutrition is key to healthy hormone balance, a healthy body, self-confidence. All of these lead to a healthy sex drive to boost your passion and your intimacy. Remember about the sugars we've been talking about. Sugar is a stress and sugar is a sex killer. I hope you're doing well on cutting the sugars out of your diet. Remember that even fruits can be chock full of sugars. So remember to eat low sugar fruits like berries, because those have a very low natural sugar content. Watch out for complex carbs. Remember what I call the halo effect of health food stores. People think just because it came from a health food store that it's healthy. but a lot of health food store products are packed with natural sugars. Honey, agave, dates, date paste, brown rice syrup, all of those are just sugar masquerading as something healthy. So remember to keep your intake of all of that minimal. Learn the foods that are holding you back from weight loss and from your more sexy self. I'm going to teach you what to eat to be the lean, healthy, passionate sex machine that you want to be. One of the first things we're going to talk about is fats. Fats in your diet. First of all, you want to avoid trans fats, and most of you probably know that by now. Remember that we don't want to avoid fats altogether, though. The low-fat craze, went out many years ago. We know now that we need certain healthy fats. Good fats are good for you, like a small amount of olive oil, extra virgin coconut oil, nuts and seeds, avocados, but try to limit those. If you're trying to cut back calories and you're trying to lose weight, you want to try to limit some of those. Now I want to talk about ways to cook, because this might be something you've never heard before, but you want to avoid frying, which you might know, and stick with grilling instead of frying. But the best way of cooking is actually poaching and stewing, cooking in liquids. The reason why is because these methods are the best, because certain chemicals can be, cancer-causing chemicals can be produced when we cook foods in certain ways, especially broiling and even grilling. One of the ways to avoid this when you're grilling is to use rosemary. Rosemary can help stop some of the carcinogenic chemicals from being produced. But keep in mind that stewing and poaching are the best ways to cook your food and the healthiest ways. Consider learning to use low-sodium vegetable broth as a great base to cook meats in and to keep them tender. I've started doing that and I love it. I think it's great, and it's a much healthier way to cook. Learn how to cook using herbs extensively in your cooking. They help add a lot of natural flavor, so you don't need a lot of artificial things, and you don't need a lot of sweeteners or processed foods, and salt. Use herbs instead of salt. Herbs are a really, really healthy way to cook, and because most of them have a lot of excellent health benefits. Here's a couple to consider. Turmeric. Turmeric is anti-inflammatory, so it can help with joint pain, body pain, all kinds of things. Inflammation is a really important thing to control in our body, and turmeric, which is that deep yellow spice, can really help us do that. Cinnamon is a great way to control your blood sugar. So if you have blood sugar problems, or even if you want to lose weight, cinnamon is an excellent way to do that. Water. We need to drink lots of water. Actually, back to that slide. We need to drink about a ½ ounce per pound of body weight, and you need to even double that if you're very active. So remember to pound the water. Most of my patients don't drink anywhere near enough water. Minimize alcohol and minimize caffeine. Remember that they both impact the adrenals. Where's my water? Excuse me. Avoid soda. Soda, I think, is one of the worst things we can do. Soda is either packed with sugar or it's packed with artificial sugars. I haven't talked a lot about artificial sugars, but they're definitely something you want to avoid, especially NutraSweet and Splenda. Splenda can affect your thyroid in bad ways. Aspartame has been shown to cause cancer in high doses. The other thing, though, that the artificial sweeteners do is they're up to 200 times more sweet than sugar. So if you thought by cutting out sugars that you'd turn to those artificial sweeteners and you would be doing okay, unfortunately, that's not the way it works. If you use those artificial sweeteners that are so much sweeter than sugar, it keeps your sugar cravings going. It makes them worse. So you really want to make sure that you're not only getting rid of the sugars, but get rid of the artificial sweeteners. So back to sodas and why sodas are so bad for you. They're also extremely acidic. They have the pH of battery acid. Who wants to be drinking battery acids? Obviously can't be so good for your insides. So those are a lot of the reasons why I really like people to avoid sodas. Another reason is they say that the phosphoric acid in soda may leach calcium from our bones and increase our risk of osteoporosis. So certainly if you have thinning bones or you're at risk for thinning bones, you really want to get rid of the soda. So the question a lot of people ask me at this point is, okay, so what do I drink? Water, of course, and people tell me, well, what if I can't stomach water? Herbal teas. Herbal teas come in all kinds of flavors. You can brew them fresh, and they come in anything from fruity flavors to spicy type flavors like chai tea. And they come in the most wide array of possibilities. So you can drink pretty much almost anything you want if you make it in the form of an herbal tea. And remember, you can ice your herbal tea, so you can make a pitcher of them and put them in the fridge so they're ready to go as an iced tea. Or you can brew hot tea, of course, especially during the colder months. As far as sweeteners, people ask me, okay, so what is okay? You know, what can I put in my tea if I need a sweetener? I'd recommend trying to find teas that you can use without sweeteners, and the more you avoid sugars, the more you're not going to have a sweet tooth. You're going to lessen your sweet tooth, and you probably won't need the sweeteners anymore. But if you do have to use a sweetener, my favorite one is probably stevia. Stevia is a natural root. It doesn't increase our blood sugar. So stevia can be used pretty safely, not increasing the cortisol, not increasing the stress on your body. There are some prepared drinks nowadays, finally, that are using stevia to sweeten them. So, and erythritol is another one that might not be so bad. So some of the drinks I've seen out there are Sobe Life Water, or Crystal Light has a line called Pure Fitness. Those are some of the ones that I've seen that you can use that have erythritol or stevia in them. And more things are coming out every day on the market, so you can look for those with stevia. Some general things to remember about nutrition is to eat small meals frequently, every 3 to 4 hours. Treat the meals as small snacks all day long to try to balance your blood sugar. Stay away from processed foods. Eat foods that your grandmother would have identified as foods. Avoid the bags, the bottles, the packaged, the frozen as much as you possibly can. Eat the fresh foods and prepare them simply, like I said, by using herbs for more flavor. Shop the periphery of the supermarket is something that I always tell my patients. A lot of people don't realize it, but the periphery of the supermarket, the external borders, are where the fresh foods are. Foods that actually look the same when they came from nature as when you're going to eat them. So fresh meats, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, those are the foods that I prefer you to stick to the most. If you think about it, if you go into the center of the supermarket, that's where you find most of the prepared things, the bottle, the bags, the frozen, all of that. So you want to try to avoid those as much as possible and shop the periphery of the supermarket. Remember, if your grandmother didn't think it was food, don't eat it. It's not good for you. Some additional things that I want to tell you about food is the makeup of your plate. So what you want to do is you want to eat about 4 ounces or a card deck size of protein with your meals. Maybe a little less if you're a smaller size or you wish to lose weight. Also eat a small serving of complex carbohydrate, maybe 1 to 2 times a day. And when I say the complex carbohydrates, I'm talking about those grains that I've been talking about all along, like maybe some brown rice or half a sweet potato or something like that. You can get the rest of the carbs that you need from fruits and vegetables. A lot of people don't realize that. They think they need the whole grains to get fiber and to get carbohydrates, but you don't. Fruit and vegetables have more than enough fiber and more than enough of those complex carbs for you. You're not missing anything by cutting out your cereals and your whole grain breads. Fill the rest of the plate with vegetables, and you can have some low sugar fruits like berries. And remember, my favorite vegetables are the cruciferous vegetables because those are the ones that have the hormone balancing benefits. Remember, those are broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale. Those are some of the cruciferous vegetables to think about concentrating on. At this point, I want to take a minute just to touch on food sensitivities. So some of you might know what food sensitivities are, but some of you might not have any idea. Food sensitivities are not the same as food allergy. Food allergy is when you have an immediate reaction, like people are allergic to strawberries, so their throat closes up or they get itching or hives. Sensitivities are things that develop over the course of days. So it's really hard sometimes for people to know what foods they're sensitive to because they may not have a reaction for 3 days down the road. So how are you going to know what you ate 3 days ago that might be causing you a reaction? So that's the difference between sensitivity and allergy. And I wanted to go over with you the 6 most common foods that are causing food sensitivity for people. Those are gluten, dairy, soy, corn, eggs, and peanuts. These ingredients are cheap and they're overused in our food supply. They make up most of our processed foods And that's one of the reasons we're becoming sensitive to them, because people are eating them in such large quantities. There's also some concern about the genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. And that is some of the reasons, because they're making the soy and the corn from these GMOs. That's some of the concern as well with food sensitivities, and why it seems that that's becoming so much more prevalent in our society. There's a huge link that we're seeing out there now between food sensitivities and autoimmune disease. The number one most common autoimmune disease being hypothyroidism, or Hashimoto's thyroiditis, they call it. So if you suffer from thyroiditis, consider getting off of some of these sensitive foods. But the sensitive foods can give us a lot of other symptoms too. Really commonly, they can give us weight loss resistance. So if you can't lose weight, try eliminating some of those foods. They can also give you other gastrointestinal symptoms like bloating, gas, constipation, or the opposite, diarrhea, or the intermittent diarrhea and constipation. So a lot of people who think who are told they have IBS and have had it for years and years, when I take them off of some of those foods, it goes away right away. Other issues, though, that you may see from food sensitivities can include things like joint pain, headaches, skin issues. The bottom line is that none of these are sexy, and getting rid of extra weight, bloating, and constipation can definitely up our sexy quotient. So that's the way this all ties back in to upping your sexy. I think it's super important for people to journal their food. You always learn when you journal what you're eating. So you can use the journal that we're emailing to you, or you can use other tools that I'll tell you about in a second. Because journaling food reduces snacking, and it helps you lose, or it helps you even maintain your weight. Even me, I don't have a weight problem, but I put on the pounds really easily. You know, a lot of people might say to me, well, what does she know about eating, all this eating healthy to lose weight and to maintain weight and all of that? Well, I'll let you in on a little secret. I do not have the best genetics at all. Unfortunately, I come from a long line of people who have a big tendency to get diabetes, which makes it much easier to gain weight and to keep weight on. So I have a pretty hard time keeping weight off and keeping trim and healthy. So I really have to concentrate a lot on this stuff. And the journaling, I have to tell you, is something that, even as much as I know about nutrition, I learn every time I journal. I realized that I was eating things that I didn't think I was, that things are sneaking into, if I stop journaling for a while and then I start again, I realized things were sneaking into my diet that were little zingers that I didn't realize were there. Or sometimes I don't realize that the makeup of what I was eating, like the fat, carbohydrate, and protein content, weren't quite what they should be. So I always learn when I journal, and I really, really encourage you to journal as well. One of the tools that I love is something called MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal is an app that you can get on iPhones, Blackberries, Androids, any smartphone. Livestrong also has an app. And even if you don't have a smartphone, sorry, no excuse, you can get these apps on the computer as well. So I would really encourage you to look at these apps and to start journaling what you're eating, so you can start these practices that I've been talking about, these nutrition changes, and you'll feel more fit. And feeling more fit is more sexy. When you eat properly, you'll bring your hormones back into balance, and that's going to raise your sex drive, increase your energy, help you get more muscle and less fat. With good nutrition, you can charge up your self-esteem. Your moods will get better and more balanced. You'll sleep better. Your life is happier. You live it better. People tell me this. And remember, less stress is better confidence. We have more energy, more balanced hormones, and those are a recipe to firing up your sex drive. So the second S in the word senses. Remember the 5 senses we talked about in webinar 1. Your touch, your vision, your taste, your sound, and your sight. Remember those 5 senses. All day long, your senses are gathering up information and sending it to your brain. Listening to that input will help you learn what stimulates you. Remember how it works. You receive triggers and you have a response. Tune into what helps you open up to your sexual feelings. The more you know about yourself and what turns you on, the more likely you'll be able to activate your senses. So create a stimulus to respond to, work with your partner to find your stimuli, and to use them to get you sexy. Engage all of your senses. Tune into them to learn how to become aroused. Exercise is the next one. Move your body regularly. Every day is really what I want you to do. Get off the couch, put down the computer, put down the remote, stop watching TV. Remember that exercise helps you keep feeling good. It stimulates your senses. Studies say exercise even can make you smarter. Exercise will increase your energy. Sex is going to feel better when you exercise more often because exercise does some pretty cool things. Exercise increases your blood flow, including your blood flow to your genitals, and a lot of sex is all about blood flow. Exercise boosts our feel-good hormones, and it improves our self-esteem and our self-confidence. When we exercise, we feel stronger, sexier, and more powerful. So what I want you to do is I want you to follow an exercise plan. We have included for you some bonuses, JJ Virgin's 4x4 workouts, which are burst training workouts. Burst training is a great kind of newer way that people use to exercise in a shorter period of time. That's what's pretty cool. JJ teaches you how to exercise and get the same bang for your buck that you would have from a 45-minute cardio session, and she teaches you to compress that for those of us who are short on time and who isn't. I've been compressing my exercises lately into a shorter, more intense exercise, and I find that I'm getting more bang for my buck on it, and I want you to try it too. Strength training. Strength training doesn't have to be just weights. Remember that you can use strength bands, which are those rubber band type of things. They've even shown on some TV shows recently, I saw that they were using pantyhose as a strength band. Also, you can use your body weight. There's a lot of great exercises that we can do that just use body weight. So you don't have to lift weights. You don't have to go into a gym. You don't have to touch a weight just to get strength training and resistance training for your muscles. Circuit training is another interesting, neat way of exercising, and that's something I've been getting into a lot lately. Circuit training with the burst training and kind of going back and forth between those because, like I said, novelty is everything, and I'll get bored if I don't switch it up. So I am doing these combinations of alternating exercises like jumping rope, squats, lunges, push-ups. You do those in a series, and a great way to start out with that is to do 10 reps of each of 5 exercises. So if you choose 5 exercises like jumping rope, squats, lunges, push-ups, etc., you choose 5 exercises and you do 10 repetitions of each exercise. So if you go through that cycle twice, that'll give you what you'd call a 100 workout, because then you've done 100 repetitions. And when you get better and better at this type of exercise, you can increase your repetitions to go all the way up to 20 repetitions of 5 exercises. So that gives you 100%. And then you work your way up to doing 3 sets. That's what they call the 300 workout. The 300 workout is special because it goes with the movie 300. I don't know if you guys remember the movie 300, but it was all about the Spartans. And that movie had some of the hottest guys ever in it. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. They put those guys through the 300 workout for weeks to months even of training before they did that movie. And the 300 workout will get you ripped just like those guys. So if that's what you're looking for, consider trying the 300. It's pretty neat. Other things you can try, if the 300 isn't for you, yoga, cardio. Cardio is still important, hiking, biking, swimming, rowing. I have a patient who told me about a neat new exercise she's doing called pole walking, where you walk with a large pole and you have to keep your balance walking with this large pole. She said she loves it, and it's brought her back to exercise. She's having a great time with that. So one of the questions I get asked a lot is, how do you stay motivated with your exercise plan? And that's really important because you need to maintain this. You need to use it or lose it. You need novelty when you exercise. If you get bored, you won't do it. Same with sex, right? So consider creating a 30-day challenge for yourself with your favorite sport. Something you could try is journaling how many feet you swam in a month or how many miles you ran in a month, and challenge yourself for new goals as you go along. Challenges really can keep you going. Another thing to consider is joining a team. Team sports keep you working together, and they're a great way to be social when you exercise. Other ways, excuse me, other ways to stay motivated when you exercise is by setting a goal. Goals really help keep you motivated, and there are so many organizations you can join that can really help you with this goal setting. One of them that I love, it's called Team in Training. They have it all over the U.S., and they work in conjunction with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. They have great programs where they help you raise money for a race, and they train you for the race, and you get involved with groups of people, so it really helps keep you motivated. Consider entering a race. Just sign up for a local 5K and start a training program. Entering races keeps you motivated. And better yet, enter the race with your friends so you can keep each other motivated. I personally do this every year for the past couple of years. I've been doing 5Ks and I've been doing a half marathon. And I never thought I could do a half marathon. I'd only ever done a 5K before. A 5K is only 3 miles. A half marathon is just slightly over 13 miles. I never thought I could do it, but I trained for months with my friends. It kept me accountable. It kept me motivated. And that's a great way to keep on track. And my friends and I, we know we need to schedule races so that we stay on track. So make yourself accountable. Exercise with groups of friends like I was just explaining, or get a trainer. If you can do a trainer, it's a great way because you know you have an appointment, you know you've got to keep it, you can't let them down, you've paid them for it. Or share a trainer. If you can't afford getting a trainer on your own or you don't want to commit to that, share a trainer with some friends. Right now in the down economy, a lot of trainers will entertain training groups of people and cut their rates a lot to do that. Or join some group training classes, like classes at a gym, or sign up for a boot camp. There are boot camps at every gym nowadays, and then there are even boot camps outside of gyms. Sometimes they hold boot camps in a local park. So think about all of these different ways to keep yourself motivated to exercise, because it's important to keep that going. So the last S in senses is self-image. That's a big topic. So we're going to talk about self-image in our next webinar. So to sum up with the pro-libido lifestyle, keep in mind your senses, stress management, like meditation, prayer, belly breathing, and other things that you might be doing that are working for you, getting enough sleep, nutritional eating, tune into your senses, exercise daily or almost daily, and self-image is the one that we're going to get to in our next webinar. If you have questions, hopefully you've been entering them in the chat box already, but if you have questions, enter them in the chat box now, and we'll take a minute to answer as many questions as we can. Okay. Okay. The question was, there was a couple of questions actually to get that I can link together. They're all about drinks. And one of the questions was, what about green tea? I love green tea. Green tea has excellent health benefits. It's been shown in many studies to have amazing health benefits. Most of the studies show that you need to drink 3 cups of green tea a day to get the health benefits of green tea. Now, keep in mind green tea can be caffeinated or decaffeinated, but the caffeine in green tea is only a third the amount that you have in a cup of coffee. So drinking 3 cups of green tea is equivalent to the caffeine of drinking 1 cup of coffee, which is a pretty acceptable amount for most people. So green tea has excellent benefits, love it. And then the other question was, what are some of the other drinks besides soda that have artificial sweeteners? I'm so glad you asked that, because we run into those everywhere, all the time. I'm constantly telling my kids about these. So most drinks out there have some kind of sweetener or some kind of artificial sweetener. Anything that says light or diet on it more than likely has an artificial sweetener. So it can be iced tea, anything from Snapple to Arizona. Those all have sweeteners and artificial sweeteners in them. Um, Juice has a lot of its own natural sugar, so I might not have said this in the past, but I recommend to my patients to eliminate all juice. If you're going to eat a fruit, I'd much rather you eat the fruit in its whole form, because whole fruits have fiber in them. And the fiber helps slow down your body's absorption of the blood sugar. Drinking juice, and even if you juice the fruits on your own, drinking juice is like mainlining sugar. So keep that in the back of your mind too. And then artificial sweeteners can be found in all kinds of juices that are light or diet, anything from V8 to any kind of juice that you can really find on the market. There are tons and tons of drinks out there with sweeteners and artificial sweeteners besides just sodas. So I'm so glad you asked that question. So you really need to read labels, read labels, read labels. That's one of the things that I really want to encourage you to get in the habit of doing. Do we have any other questions for right now? My producer is going to read them to me. That's a good one. Are there specific foods that are sexually stimulating? So some people find chocolate sexually stimulating because it's got the ability to boost some of our feel-good hormones. The classic oysters can work for some people. One you may not have heard about is watermelon. Watermelon has a substance in it called citrulline, and that can help up some of our feel-good and sexy boosting hormones. Really any food, though, can be used as an erotic stimulant, depending on how you use it in sensory experience exercises. Like strawberries dipped in chocolate can be lots of fun. Some people find hot and spicy foods invigorating and sexually stimulating. And those are some neat ones to try. So I'd give those a try. Yes, juicing vegetables. Okay, so I said juicing fruit is not the best way to go. I'd rather have you eat the whole fruit. But juicing vegetables can be an amazing way of getting a super high concentrate of the vitamins and minerals that you can find in the vegetables. One of the things that I like is now people are using devices like the Vitamix. The traditional juicers separate the vegetable juice from the vegetable pulp, and the pulp is where all the fiber is. The Vitamix mashes it all together, so you get the benefits of the fiber and of the extract from the minerals and the vitamins from the vegetables. So definitely juicing vegetables is an awesome thing to do, but let me give you a word of caution on that. Certain vegetables are pretty high in sugar. So especially carrots is one of the ones that's especially high in sugar. So if you're juicing carrots, only juice a small amount of carrot. Do we have some other questions? That's it? Okay, great. So I want to move on to what's next for us. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. And watch your inbox. Make sure to watch your inbox for reminders about our next time together. As we boost your desire, we'll also need to boost your confidence. So we're going to talk about that in our next webinar. We're going to talk about boosting your confidence, your feminine power, your sexy thoughts, and we're going to talk about your self-talk. We'll also find ways to bring your bonding, flirting, and togetherness into your relationship. And we're going to take everything we've learned so far, put it all together to create a more passionate you. So here are the plans that you need to think about over the course of the next week. Here's your prescription plan, doctor's orders. So I want you to do your sensory exploration again. I want you to tune into your senses with your 20-minute bath or rest with candles, essential oils. Engage your senses. Be mindful. Be present in the moment. You could do it after a workout, again, to try charging up your testosterone. And this time what I want you to add is I want you to think of a new fantasy or read an erotic book or do something you've never done before. Involve a toy, sex toy. Do you notice how much more intense the experience is when you use novelty? Try that 2 or 3 times during the next week. We've got some other fun exercises for you this week involving your partner. So share the testosterone. Last week you learned about the power of your testosterone. This week, do something physical with your partner. Do a real workout and then go out on a date. See what happens with your increased testosterone. Also, I want you to ask your partner some questions. One thing I want you to do is ask your partner what his favorite body part of yours is, and come up with ideas for playing it up. This will be part of our self-image exploration in our next webinar. I also want you to remember your daily practices. Practice yoga, do your meditation, and practice mindfulness all the time, every day. Change your diet in the ways that we've talked about. Remember to introduce novelty all the time. And journal. Watch your emails for the daily link to your journal. Remember to think about sex. Put it on your list. Either sex, your husband or partner's name, or a code word. But rewire your desire to continue thinking about sex. Thanks so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. Until then, wishing you the best of great health, great happiness, and of course, great sex. See you soon. Have a great night.